All right, cadets. Terrain effect on movement. This is a phrase that has been used in wargaming since day one, and it's fairly self-explanatory, I would think. That different means of locomotion, meaning walking, driving, and the different forms of vehicles, locomotion, wheels, half track, tracks, uh, if applicable, others such as skis or whatever it may be. Uh, Different types of terrain can affect them differently. This is all boiled down into why do we have roads? This may seem almost flippant. It's not meant to be, but it's simply that. Why did we make roads? Because walking over certain types of terrain became, well, it didn't become, it always was, difficult, slowed things down. Sometimes it was exhausting. Just if you walk a beach, have you ever walked a soft sanded beach for a long period of time? If a lot of people tell me, "Oh, I'm in good shape and all that." Well, good for you, but we all aren't. We all know it. So if you're not, try walking one of those for a while. A normal walk on the beach in even slightly deep, soft sand can become a little bit tiring because it's not the flat surface of a sidewalk or a road. Walking uphill is more difficult than walking flat land. Uh, Getting into a ditch may be a lot easier than getting out of one, whether it be on foot or certainly in a vehicle situation. Anybody who's spun out because of ice or something like that, you know what I'm talking about. All these things in terrain effects on movement can just be visualized and applied to real world. And you can see very quickly, very easily what they're trying to abstractly uh, emulate. Certain terrain will have an entry cost and an exit cost, such as here in this example chart from Panzerblitz, where if you go down to uh, gullies and stream beds, you'll see that there is a different cost of entering than there is of leaving the hex. That's why. You could fall into that. You could slide into that if you're real spry. You might even be able to jump into it, whatever. But even if you're, you know, well trained and athletic, getting out is going to take a little bit more effort and a little bit more time. That's why entry has a different cost than exit. So these are real basic things. And the cost means cost in movement points or movement factors. Depending on the game, they use those two different phrases and they mean the same thing. It's a numerical rating of the potential of the vehicle or unit or person, whatever it is, to move in a set amount of time. The war game or most games have a length of round or length of turn. How far can you move in that turn? That's represented by movement factors. Showing that you're in more difficult terrain that takes longer to traverse than easier terrain is done by adding more points to the cost of entering than others. In some cases, some games like this one in Panzerblitz, if you notice roads and towns, they exemplify that asphalt, hardened roads are there to facilitate traffic, to make it easier to move. And that's done by alleviating the cost, making it cheaper to move into or to move along a road or into a town that's got roads all over it. So that's all you're doing. It's just a way to represent speed without having to calculate time speed, distance. If you're, those things that they called word problems in elementary school. If you're in a car going 45 miles an hour heading towards Dayton from Cleveland and you've traveled 45 minutes, how far have you gone? That kind of thing, that's a pain in the ass. No one wants to do that for a game, so you have movement factors so that you don't have to. Now all you have to do is count backwards from the amount of movement factors that you have versus the cost of the route that you took. That's all terrain effects is. And it will be relatively standard throughout all my games where it is applied. Relatively, because there's always exceptions to every rule. And this is where people get, well, that's complicated. But if you look, if you're, well, we've played all games on hard terrain, but now we're going to play in lava or on a new planet that has a different terrain. Sometimes some new concepts have to be added or introduced in order to make the game more versatile in that it can be moved to a different situation. That's a far cry different from having to go buy a completely different system because, well, this system does that, but this one doesn't. And I see people doing that with a lot of things. And my intent is to make a variety of games that have the same basic foundation. And yes, there will be exceptions and there will be a few additions and differences because one might be about aerial warfare and the other one might be about submarine warfare. There's going to be some different things in there. I mean, but that's as far as it goes. So in general, you'll see terrain effects chart that is almost identical as long as the scale is. But they'll all have the same concept. How many movement points does it take to enter the hex for that particular unit? Real simple stuff.